Today on the program, we're talking about customer relationship management in the banking industry. I'm being joined on the program by the Chairman, Board of Trustees, Bank Customers Association, Dr. Ogubunka, and the Group Head, Customer Experience Heritage Bank, Mr. Ralph Omoregie. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Good morning, and thank you.
So let's start with, let me start with you, Dr. Ogubunka. What's your general assessment of the relationship between bank customers and the banks?
Well, the relationship between banks and their customers, so far so good. There's always room for improvement, they say, in all things. It's like a moving target. It's not like, it's not a destination. It's a journey that we must always continue to build that relationship, and it never stops at any point in time. So it's an ongoing business. For as long as there is a relationship, both parties would continue to work to ensure that there is harmony, there is peace, and it's ongoing for the benefit of both parties and, of course, the general economy.
Okay, so now let's make this assessment a little tighter. Let's look at the relationship between bank customers and banks in the last 6 months to 1 year. Would you say there's been a remarkable improvement from where it came from in 2013, for instance?
You see, the relationship between a bank and the customer is supposed to be multidimensional. You have the debtor-creditor relationship, for instance. You have the trustee relationship. You have the agent-principal relationship, depending on the way you look at it. Going the last 6 months, it's improving. It's improving in the sense that both parties are beginning to understand that they have a stake in the relationship. And so they're all working towards ensuring that they partner to make progress. And that, I think, if we assess it from that point of view, one can clearly say it is improving. But like I said, there is room for serious improvement.
Okay, so Ralph, Dr. Ogubunka has scored for, at least for the customers. They feel they're satisfied. But looking at relationships, it's always very critical, especially since the banks understand that they're in a relationship that's supposed to be gain-gain, not a win-win kind of situation. And looking at how much of this relationship or success has been recorded, would you say it has been as encouraging as the banks really want?
Well, I would say it has been quite encouraging. Just like he said, right now the bank customers find themselves in the driver's seat, and that's because they actually have so much more in terms of options. I mean, customers can switch banks so easily right now with the array of services available to them. So it has improved the competitive landscape. So basically banks now are being more competitive, and it has helped them ramp up their service quality. So from that point of view, what banks have gained in that relationship is that they have become more efficient and more effective in meeting the customer needs.
But then you still have complaints from customers with regards meeting their needs. For instance, let's take issues with regards deposits, withdrawals, payments, and the rest of it. There's still some problems. We can't call them teething problems. And you see, it comes at a time when we have so much technology in place, and it almost now seems as if the banks are not deploying this technology as efficiently as they should.
I think you just hit the nail on the head, because you can have technology, and if the processes are not what they should be, the technology will not deliver what is expected. So it varies within the industry, but those issues that come up really have to do with, a lot of the times, process issues with regards to how technology is deployed. And that's why you have customers continuing to feel those kind of pains. But all in all, it really is improving.
So whose responsibility is it to fine-tune those processes?
Within the banks, it is their responsibility. And a lot of banks have the dedicated teams who actually look at business processes within the bank itself and also between them and other stakeholders in the industry. So banks themselves take charge of those business processes. In some cases, regulators also come in as well when they look at from the big picture.
But Dr. Ogubunka, how often have banks actually, met with the association with regards looking at some of fine-tuning some of those processes that Ralph just mentioned?
Yeah, we are in contact with the banks, especially when our members complain. You see, in every relationship, there will always arise a complaint from either party. Complaints can come from banks, as it were. Perhaps they've given a loan to a customer and the customer is not delivering, so they can complain. But essentially, customers seem to be the ones complaining more. Apparently because also they are larger in number, they are the ones being served, and they have a greater stake in the bank. If you look at a typical bank balance sheet, you see that the money that belongs to customers far outweighs what belongs to the banks. And so they have greater stake in a banking institution.
Yeah, because the banks are in business because of the customers anyway.
That's right. And so when they complain of our service failures, they have every right to complain. But again, the question we then ask is, how are the banks responding to such complaints? And I can clearly tell you that the central bank, the banks, the bankers committee, they've set up systems where customers can lay their complaints. And then such complaints are addressed as they come.
But how quickly are they addressed?
That's where I wanted to hit the nail. But it's now a matter of how quickly, the speed at which these things are dealt with. For instance, a customer is not supposed to go to central bank and complain on the first instance, for instance. You have to go to your branch, lay your complaint, and then it's expected that at the branch level, the complaint should be addressed. And if they cannot address it, perhaps they take it to the regional level or to the head office within a time frame. And I know that some banks have, complaint resolution desks. So anything that gets there is supposed to come out on time. But unfortunately, we don't have that kind of timely intervention as at today. And so when customers get frustrated, they now have to escalate the complaint either to central bank or to the subcommittee on ethics and professionalism of the bankers committee. So I think there's a lot of need for improvement in the way and manner banks attend to the complaints of their customers.
So, Ralph, why does it seem to be an issue handling resolutions promptly? Because, of course, we know that most banks have this desk, like Dr. Ogubunka has actually mentioned. So why does it seem to still be an issue?
Well, I would say it's for a number of factors, but key among them would also be the attitude.
Attitude of the customers?
Attitude, not even the customers now, but the service personnel involved. Sometimes, when there is no service orientation, you'll find that there might be delays coming in what would ordinarily have been a smooth process. And with that, the customer feels the brunt of it. Now that is one. We spoke earlier about internal process efficiency, that again could get in the way. So, but the reality is that if the right attitude is there for the service personnel, they have a service orientation and they really are driven by the passion to ensure that the customer complaints are resolved as quickly as possible. Many banks have what you call a service recovery team, where they even go as far now as not just fixing the problem, but even going as far as rewarding the customer because they have failed them. And that's a way of trying to make sure you renew the relationship. was damaged.
Before you even get to that, to ensure that that relationship doesn't get more strained than it already is, because you see, as you know, group head of customer experience, I'm sure you come across such cases every day on a daily basis. You find a customer who comes in very unhappy because they've tried to do a transaction that has gone awry, and they come to meet a personnel who they're expecting to be, to first of all, placate them and tell them, look, it's going to be all right, we're going to get your money back to you, but the person doesn't even meet up to the billing. So that now throws a bad light on the banks in that there isn't proper training of personnel to handle such desk. It's almost like putting a square peg in a round hole.
You're correct in that sense, because training is very key, and when you have those who are being given the skills and the orientation that is required, they will be able to attend to the customer needs in the way that they should. What happens in banks sometimes is that you have gaps in the area of human resourcing. And so, like you said, square pegs and round holes. But the point I made earlier about attitude, when banks hire staff, especially for the service area, it's important that staff that have the right attitude, the right orientation, are the ones who are put in places where they come in contact with customers. There are some kinds of people who have no business interfacing with customers. But there are others who it's their nature. So if you take those ones and you train them, you'll find that, in fact, your customers will be singing your praises. That's what will happen.
Now, in terms of improving customer experience, how actively have the banks tried to explain, some of these policies that come up from the central bank, the regulator, especially with regards to deposits, charges and withdrawals and payments? Because you see, it's very important that this relationship, albeit, as Dr. Ogubunka has actually pointed out, might be strained at some point, but to ensure that as much as possible there's a seamless relationship, how often does the bank, take time out to educate its customers on some of these policies?
Very often. I could speak for us. Basically, from where I'm coming from at Heritage Bank, we make sure that as soon as these policies are out, we communicate them effectively via different channels at the experience centers, which call our branches, through SMS, email. We make sure that customers are always informed about, even on the online channels, websites, tell them what the new policies are and how it affects how it would have to impact on how they do business, just to make sure. And it's a mandate from the CBN, the consumer protection, a key part of it.